Jesse. This is Scrabble Babble, an initiative in part put on by Mind Sports International, exploring the world of competitive Scrabble. We're going to be talking to players on this show. We're going to preview upcoming tournaments briefly, summarizing some of what happened in past tournaments recently, and also just getting into some of the nitty gritty with the world of competitive Scrabble, some of the news in the world of competitive Scrabble. We're even going to try and do some live questions and answers and call-ins on this show. There's lots of potential, so please stay tuned. Today we're just going to talk briefly about the Mind Sports Academy website and then interview several players in different spots of the Scrabble world traveling to play in tournaments in the coming weeks. Mind Sports has updated the Mind Sports Academy website with all sorts of brand new content. There are news articles ranging from lists of words that you should know. There are Scrabble tutorials that have been posted in the recent weeks by British expert Philip Nelcon. You can check them out. They are beginner level, intermediate level, and even advanced level tutorials. So no matter where you are on the Scrabble rating scale, or if you don't even have a rating at all, you can check out a set of tutorials that are appropriate to your rating level and improve your game that much more. The website is mindsportsacademy.com, and after you sign up for an account there, you'll be able to access any of those tutorials plus all of the news stories. And for those of you active Scrabble players, there is a ranking system that Mind Sports Academy is working on. It's looking to combine ratings from several sources. For the North American players, NASPA is a rating that will be accounted for. That's the North American Scrabble Players Association. For those of you who play around the world, a WESPA rating is also factored into this Mind Sports rating. That'll be for any tournaments played under the WESPA banner. And then for those of you who play in the United Kingdom, your ABSP rating is also factored into this Mind Sports rating. All those are combined and calculated into one global rating. We are hoping in the future at Mind Sports that this will help to more accurately rank players and put them in respective divisions for future events, such as the upcoming Mind Sports World Championships that will be occurring in Lille, France this summer. There are going to be 3 divisions in the main event separating players, and depending on the way you qualify, there is either an invitational way into divisions higher than your rating would place you in, or there are open divisions for you that are only slightly limited by your rating. Open technically means there is no limit by rating per se, but we do have some suggested rating cutoffs so that if you are above a certain rating that you don't play down in an open division that isn't appropriate for you. So it's sort of a hybrid. In the sense, this isn't a true open because there is more than one division, but there are 3 open divisions with suggested cutoffs. We're going to move on to several interviews that I conducted over Skype in the last week with players headed to the iGate International taking place in Bangalore, India, midweek next week. And then there are several players headed off to the Crescent City Cup in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the United States. I am going to turn attention first over to Asia, where we will catch up with one of the organizers of iGate right from its inception, Sanjoy Gupta. He'll be joining us, as well as longtime Scrabble player Gerry Carter, who resides in Thailand but grew up in the United Kingdom. So he's got an interesting background, and we'll share a little bit about his experiences in tournament Scrabble as well as outside of the Scrabble scene. Here we go. We're going to turn this over to my interviews with the 2 of them. I am with Sanjoy Gupta from Bangalore, India. He is going to be attending the iGate tournament that is held there in January at this time every year. Interesting fact, Sanjoy has attended every single tournament since its inception in 2005. That's not something I think many people can say, if anyone else can say. Welcome, Sanjoy.
Hey, Jesse. Thanks very much. not very not it's really a no-brainer that I've attended every single iGate because I am from Bangalore and have been in some ways involved with the local club partnering with iGate to get this tournament sponsored. So it's the biggest tournament in India, and it's one of the big tournaments in Asia. So I wouldn't miss it for anything, and it's been a great run. And iGate has been making it bigger in terms of number of participants, bigger in terms of prize money. So it's just been getting better. Happy to be at iGate next week.
So then, given that you've been part of organizing and getting sponsorship for it, there's certainly a vested interest in there. But what do you think gets everyone else coming back to iGate all the time? What makes it such a unique experience, you think?
I guess everyone's got their own reasons, but there's one basic human driver which definitely works in iGate's favor. It's probably the best bang for your buck, your best value for money for a with a high quality tournament that you might find anywhere in the world. If you just look at, I don't have the data right here, but the whole prize purse, the participation fees, and the fact that your participation fees gives you virtually every meal over 4 days of the tournament, plus transport to the venue, a nice place to play. I think that's an economic reason, which is clearly a good driver. And then you've got the fantastic Asian players who come in from, there's Nigel, there's the Singapore gang, there's a Thai gang, which comes in, and then a great bunch of players from Australia. And it's over 4 days, so it's a good number of games. And then it's the best time of the year to visit India, and Bangalore is the best city in the country. It's the lovely weather, similar to spring in Western countries. Cool. So it's a nice time to be here. So it's a great time for Scrabble, and if you can make it, you should try to be here.
So it's sort of like an all-inclusive package almost, if that were to exist for Scrabble. That's a pretty appealing reason to go, I would say.
Yes, it's. I've played in tournaments in many countries, and I have never seen this kind of package, which includes, apart from what I mentioned in terms of breakfast, lunch. Yeah, we start with breakfast too, lunch, snacks in between, tea, coffee, of course. There's goodies that are given out, T-shirts, and even I think last year we got this really cool 4 GB memory stick in the shape of a racing car that was given by the sponsors. So it's nice stuff.
So recently you competed at the WESPA Championship in Perth in Australia. How was that for you? How do you feel about WESPA's first self-run de facto world championship?
Well, that was a fantastic experience because it was really large. There was over 200 players between the two divisions. So there was the world championship, and then there was the second division. I was playing in the second division, and we had about 110, 115 players in each division. So they had 200 plus players. It's fantastic because apart from the games, you get to hobnob with people from so many different countries, people you've played with on ISD or you've heard about. There's a good bonhomie, and I really enjoyed the tournament. It was a nice venue, great view of horse racing track. It was reasonably well organized, went off smoothly. It was a very nice touch. The ladies of Western Australia and Perth did a lot of baking, and through the day they had maybe 2 or 3 times nice baked snacks available for players, which was quite a good scene considering there are 200 plus people, hungry guys and ladies hanging around. that was a nice touch, and it was good games. Yeah.
So it sounds like a consistent theme with iGate and with the championship in Perth is sort of this home feeling, this ability to interact with people that might be high rated, low rated, and make them very human. Did that play a factor in getting you into tournament Scrabble? What exactly got you started and kept you playing?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think that's you get into community and start enjoying it as you go along. But I guess what got me into Scrabble is just a love for words, and so that's what started me off. And I haven't looked back. I think it's just a love for words, and then as you go along, you find that hey, maybe you're not so bad at this, and then a while later you find hey, maybe you're actually good at this if you put in some effort. So I think the ability to move up the ratings and positions in tournaments, that's the motivation. So in fact, at Perth, which was my last major tournament, I came sixth in that tournament, which is my best performance in an international over the last 10, 12 years that I've been playing. I'm pretty pleased with that performance and reflected in a nice big ratings jump as well. So that's the motivation. But I really enjoy. I just enjoy playing around with the words, and I, unlike many Scrabble players, like to also dabble in the meanings. So that's the fun part of it. Yeah, and I like winning.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice if we could all win all the time. Someone has to lose, sadly. It's been me a lot lately.
Yeah, no, I do too, of course. My usually my target in a big tournament like Perth is to look at bettering a 50% strike rate on wins on a game to game basis, and you usually end up in not too bad with that. And then if you do 60 or 65% wins, then you could be in the top 10 quite easily.
So it sounds like you have a fairly balanced approach to Scrabble in the sense that winning obviously is nice, but winning at least 50%, I would say, is a fairly balanced goal. How else do you strike that balance? If we weren't to see you across on a Scrabble board, where else would we find you? What would we expect to see you doing?
Oh, I do. So in terms of recreation and hobbies, I'd say Scrabble is my thing, and the rest of it is, well, I have one interesting hobby which I've converted into a business, and I'm a coffee roaster. I have my own brand of single estate coffee, and I roast that a custom roast basis under the brand Estate Craft. And apart from that, uh, fund my Scrabble trips uh, by running a marketing consultancy business.
So then, when you travel for tournaments, I imagine you can't help but try a local brand of coffee if possible. Is there any favorite international flavor that you like to get when you travel?
So in fact, this my whole coffee business came out because of trying out various kinds of local coffee cafes. I would say they're not they're local brands, and uh, Bangkok is one place which has got some very interesting cafes. So I picked up ideas, some packaging ideas from there, from Bangkok, as well as from Seattle, which of course is the birthplace of coffee, really, of coffee roasting. Um, and when I was in Australia, I tried out um, some of the cafes in Australia. That's also a very sophisticated coffee market. Um, yeah, they're usually local city level brands.
While I was speaking to Sanjoy, Thailand Scrabble expert Gerry Carter was on an adventure of his own in Bangalore that day, heading off to horse races over 100 kilometers away in Mysore. He had quite the adventure going there and back. We're going to talk to Gerry about his adventure in Mysore at the horse races, as well as some of what drew him to Scrabble and what he loves about the game. We're going to go over to Gerry right now. I am joined by Gerry Carter, who resides in Bangkok, Thailand, but comes from the United Kingdom, so quite a mixed background for this gentleman. Gerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you competed in the WESPA Championship in Perth, Australia recently. How was that competition for you? What was it like?
Well, billed as a world championship or version thereof, we wouldn't have expected it to be very easy. I was quite happy with my performance because I prepared very detailedly for the first time for a tournament in several years. So several months of work on vocabulary. So I felt I was very well prepared going into the tournament. And consequently, I felt I did well. I enjoyed the intensity of the competition against some of the best players in the world. And even though my finishing position of 66 was, to me, disappointing, I still felt as I did as well as I could. It was a terrific tournament, a lot of fun, and as I said, the intensity makes it incredibly enjoyable for me.
So the tournament was held at a horse racing venue, Gloucester Park, I believe, in Perth. Tell us a little bit about your connection to the equestrian world.
Well, the equestrian world is interesting. I've never ever been on a horse, and I never intend to get on one. But when I was a young kid, I had no interest in Scrabble. I really had an interest in working on form and trying to win money. So when I was even 14, before I really was allowed to bet, I used to have a racing paper delivered to my house, which I kept secret from my dad. And I used my brother's betting accounts in order to wager rather large amounts of money, far in excess of my pocket money. And I wasn't doing too badly. What it exactly showed was that I was very, very much interested in statistics and numbers. And really, when 15 years later came around and I picked up a copy of the OSPD in Bangkok, it was kind of a natural transition from one form of numbers to another. But I've maintained a lifelong interest in horse racing. So wherever I go around the Scrabble world, I will be going to see the races which are near that tournament before it and sometimes even after it.
So you're in Bangalore, India, for the iGate tournament that's coming up very shortly here. I understand that you traveled several hours outside of town just to get to a horse race and come right back. Could you talk to me a little bit about just that whole experience, and then about couch surfing? We share some interest there where we stay with people around the world. How have you tied in couch surfing to your Scrabble experience?
Okay, well, the racing one was yesterday morning. I just went onto Google and was trying to find out if there was any racing in this state, and I found out rather late, unfortunately, that there was racing at Mysore, which is 140 kilometers away. Now, Indian trains can be a bit slow, but even I was not quite prepared, despite my experience of the railways here, that it was going to take so long. So instead of getting there for the second or third races, I got there for the seventh of eighth. But fortunately, I managed to slip a bet on number one in the seventh race, which came home at 9-2 and paid for my day. So a successful day all round at the races. Couch surfing is something I've been doing at several tournaments, including one or two for MSI. I did couch surfing for the first time in Prague, where I stayed with a lawyer. For Westpac, I did couch surfing with a lovely lady called Pat Jones, who had a massive apartment which she let me stay in for free and became my mum. She was 74 years old. She became my mum for a week, making sure that I was properly fed and watered when I went to the Scrabble tournament. Somebody not massively interested in Scrabble, but somebody thrilled to have a professional gamer staying with them who would go home and regale them with stories at the end of the day of playing bearded wonders and even managing to win on occasion. Here in Bangalore, I'm staying with a wonderful guy who's a vet, and again, not a Scrabble player, but somebody I met through one of the couch surfing sites, and he welcomes me into his home and gives me a room in his house, and lives in downtown Bangalore, and we go out for dinners together and everything like that. And to me, I'm not the kind of player who is likely to make money out of this game, but it helps me to offset my costs and also take off some of the pressure when I'm in a Scrabble tournament by not mixing with Scrabble people at all, not talking about the game after hours, but just relaxing and maybe talking about football, horse racing, dogs, cats, whatever a vet talks about. And believe me, Arvin can talk about international politics as much as he can talk about his cat's broken leg.
So it sounds like your experience with your couch surfers, or couch surfing hosts rather, has been surprised somewhat that there is a competitive Scrabble scene, that there are players who try to make money at this. I understand you're writing a book where you're talking about some of the more human experiences that we go through as Scrabble players. I imagine that this is probably connected to your experience as couch surfing as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's important. My book is more about, I hope it's going to be, more about the lifestyle of people who are involved in this game. There's one or two very lucky individuals who can travel around the world and make enough money to make it pay. But there's a huge amount of people who actually make enormous sacrifice to go to the other end of the world and long plane journeys and spend huge amounts of money just for the prospect that one day they might be in the top 30 or the top 20 and receive nothing more than the kudos or the self-esteem that brings with a good performance, making an effort to do something. And there are pensioners doing this, there are young people doing this, there are people who do it for the love of the game. And to me, everything that I do, the experiences I have at a tournament or the experiences I have doing couch surfing, is all part of that sort of whole lifestyle and theme of enjoying life, but with a central theme around the game, which is at the absolute core of who I am and what I see as a lovely part of life.
All right, Gerry, thank you very much for joining us. We will see you on the circuit very soon.
We will, and very nice to speak to you too, and look forward to. We've never played, but hopefully we can play very, very shortly, and I can give you a jolly sound English thrashing.
Maybe in France, we shall see you there.
Let's hope so. Yeah. Cheers.
I spoke with Gerry for some time after the interview, almost an hour, in fact. Very fascinating individual, one of my favorite people from the Asia region of the Scrabble playing world. But now we're going to focus our attention over to North America. Recently, the California Open happened in San Francisco. It's one of the staple events on the West Coast in the NASPA Scrabble calendar. We're going to talk to Cecilia Lee, who competed at the California Open and will be on her way to the aforementioned Crescent City Cup in New Orleans in just 1 week's time. We're going to cut over to when I spoke with Cecilia earlier this week. I am joined by Cecilia Lee, a Scrabble expert from the San Francisco area. Cecilia recently competed in the California Open, finishing in an impressive 5th place in a very strong field, and will be playing in the Crescent Cup in New Orleans shortly. Cecilia, welcome.
Hi, Jesse.
So, Cecilia, tell me a little bit about the California Open. How was it playing against everybody there?
The California Open was really fun. It's my hometown tournament, so definitely one of my favorites of the year. I went in with really low expectations for myself, considering that I had just come back a month earlier from competing in Perth in the other dictionary. It was actually my first TWL tournament since the new words got added, and so I think that I had put a little work into trying to sort everything out, but not too much. So really, it was just for fun. I ended up hosting a lot of friends, saw a lot of people from out of town, and it turned out to be a really exciting tournament. Many of my good friends were at the top, and I ended up doing pretty well too, which was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, that was really nice to see from you there. Could you talk to me a little bit about going back and forth between both of the books? For those of you who are unfamiliar with this concept, there's actually 2 different dictionaries that we use depending on where we play in the world. So, Cecilia, could you talk to me a little bit about going back and forth? How difficult is that, or how easy is it?
It hasn't been that as difficult as I thought, and that maybe because I don't know enough Collins words to get terribly confused. But I found that when I went back to TWL, it was actually pretty clear which words were which. I think the hard part for me was that they had made a dictionary update to TWL while I was still playing Collins, and so some of the words I knew in Collins had become good in TWL, but I didn't know which ones.
I found a bit of a struggle with that myself as I've been trying to keep up with both the books. So there's this separation of knowing there are certain words that work only in one book, and then there's many more that work in the other. It's not completely continuous anymore, so a little harder, I imagine. So talk to me a little bit about New Orleans. This is a tournament that many people go to as one of their only tournaments where they travel out of state, out of province, or even out of country, we're seeing in several cases. What makes New Orleans so special?
New Orleans is my other favorite tournament aside from the California Open, and it's definitely a special tournament. It's one that gets one of the biggest crowds of the entire year. People coming from all around the country as well as internationally. I think that is a credit to the organizers who have just done a fantastic job with it, as well as the city itself, which is really special and a destination for many people. I think it's one place in the United States that has very unique history and culture, and we all take advantage of that as much as possible while still sitting inside for 8 hours a day playing Scrabble. I think we do our best to take advantage of those evenings.
So during the evenings, when not playing Scrabble games, what do players tend to do, say in New Orleans, to pass the time?
Tricky question. I think that the food is definitely a big draw for many people. Music is a huge thing in New Orleans, and then I think that the city has somewhat of a party culture. There's parades. The first couple of years we were in a hotel on Bourbon Street, which was just really comical because there would just be like trombones outside the window as you were trying to play. Just parades passing every hour, and so players, there's no shortage of things to do there, and I think that's one tournament where we see people kind of let loose a little bit and get a little bit wild.
So would you say that Scrabblers are pretty wild in general after hours, or is this just a special occasion, do you think?
I think New Orleans is where you see it the most, so anyone who wants to know what I'm talking about will have to come themselves.
Look at that. You have an invitation from one of the best expert Scrabble players in North America to join us in New Orleans. Cecilia, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you soon in New Orleans.
Thanks, Jesse.
For the final interview of the show, we're going to speak with Michigan player Evan Berofsky. Evan once lived in Canada, in fact, my country of birth and residence. So it's a slight spot of bitterness to have to say Michigan. No offense to my Michiganders who are watching today. You are lovely people. It's just sad to have lost him over to the United States. We're going to try and claim him back. But for now, he lives in the state of Michigan in the United States, and we caught up with him earlier this week. He spoke about why he likes to go to the Crescent City Cup in New Orleans, and also what got him into Scrabble ultimately in the first place. Here was my interview with Evan. I am joined by Evan Berofsky from Waterford, Michigan. We actually have a Canadian history going on here, but he has jumped across the border, so I'm not going to hold it against him, at least for a couple of minutes here. Evan, you've gone to 4 tournaments in the last year. Most of them have been local, but one of them is the Crescent Cup, which is coming up here again in just a little bit in New Orleans. Can you talk about what makes the Crescent Cup so special and what made you travel for this tournament?
Well, the tournament is promoted almost like a nationals, and where the other things to do in the city are promoted just as much as the tournament, because there are lots of things to do in New Orleans.
What would you say is happening in New Orleans every year at the tournament that gets people to come back over and over again? Obviously there's Scrabble, but what else is going on that really gets everyone coming back?
Well, there are a lot of good restaurants, a lot of good food in New Orleans, And from what I hear, there are a lot of good places to drink, but neither myself nor my wife will probably be partaking in any of this. And there are a lot of places to stay at until the sun comes up the next morning. So I don't encourage Scrabble people playing in the tournament to do that, but that's their own business.
Well, you might encourage them because it would give you an easier game, perhaps. You never know. Maybe, well, if you were the designated driver, that would keep you awake as well. So I guess, depends on how charitable you're feeling.
True. Although I don't usually like to take advantage of my opponent. Not all the time. Unless their word knowledge is suspect.
Fair enough. Where might we expect to find you if we weren't playing across from you on a Scrabble board? What else keeps you busy?
Well, work generally, because I work mornings, and then I sometimes sleep around that. But my wife and I enjoy playing live trivia.
Did trivia sort of seal the deal for the two of you? I imagine that you must have met through Scrabble, but did that really just make it all that much sweeter?
Well, we never really knew about each other playing trivia when we met, or even soon after. That just came about because this league started a couple of years ago, and we just recently won the state championship for this league, participating as a duo, which is rare in the league because we are the only technically elite team that participates as a duo where other teams have more. Scrabble sealed the deal probably from the start.
And for Scrabble, what really got you into the game in the first place? What ultimately drew you in and kept you playing?
In terms of Scrabble, just as a game, I played when I was much younger with my mother. But in terms of competitively, I sort of stumbled upon it when I was in university, or what you Americans call college, for the first time. Not you, you're not American.
Nope.
For the first time, yeah. Well, for the first time, this was in gosh, I'm now forgetting what year I'm in. No, this was in 1997 when I was at York University, and I just was searching for Scrabble online. Just Scrabble, and they said, upcoming tournaments, and they said, one of them, Earl Bales Community Center in Toronto. I said, I know where that is. Contact John Chu. And I contacted him. He says, come down to the club. That was May of 1997, and the rest is history.
History. Huh. It's amazing how we all come to the game in very different ways and what you get out of it. In your case, you've even gotten a wife out of it now, so look at you go. Well done indeed, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today, Evan. We will see you shortly in New Orleans for the Crescent Cup. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, see you in New Orleans, Jessica.
And that, folks, is a wrap for the first edition of the Mind Sports International edition of Scrabble Babble. We're looking for feedback from you as to how we can make this show the best it can possibly be, because it is really all about you ultimately and what you are looking to get out of your Scrabble experience, not just at tournaments but also with the Scrabble community at large. If you have ideas for what you would like to see on this show, then you can submit them to Mind Sports on their website or on the Mind Sports International Facebook group. Or if you are on any of the unofficial or official groups for your respective Scrabble association, if you send in feedback there, then I will do my best to incorporate your suggestions into future shows. So yes, it would be greatly appreciated if you sent in ideas for what you would like to see. We're going to do more than interviews in the future, hoping to have some live games broadcast on the show. And as mentioned at the beginning of the show, some questions and answers. Mind Sports International's own Dave Brannon is hoping to do a question and answer, particularly related to the Lille World Championship later this year. And if you are willing also to be part of a question and answer, if you're an expert player or if you're the lead of an association, then your presence on this show would also be appreciated. Until then, This is Jesse Matthews signing off. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next edition of Scrabble Babble very soon. Thank you.